The glass tower Nikhil Malhotra gazed down at Mumbai's skyline from his 60th floor office, the city sprawling beneath him like a circuit board of light and shadow. At 34, he had built visionary tech from nothing into India's most promising artificial intelligence company, and the view reminded him daily of the distance between himself and everyone else. "Mr. Malhotra, the new data analyst is here for orientation." His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Nikhil sighed. He hated orientation days. Time wasted on people who would likely be gone within 6 months, unable to keep pace with his demanding standards. "Send her in, Rohan, let's get this over with." The woman who entered his office was unremarkable at first glance. Average height, slim build, hair pulled back in a practical bun. She wore a simple navy blue pantsuit, no designer labels, minimal jewelry. Nothing about her suggested exceptional talent, which immediately annoyed Nikhil. He'd specifically requested HR find him brilliance. "Zara Patel," she said, extending her hand with a directness that momentarily caught him off guard. Her handshake was firm, her gaze steady. "Thank you for the opportunity. Your resume claims expertise in predictive modeling and neural networks," Nikhil said, skipping pleasantries and gesturing toward the chair opposite his desk. "We have 50 applicants with similar credentials. Why should I believe you're different?" A flicker of something, amusement perhaps, crossed Zara's face before she composed herself. "Because I solved your company's blockchain vulnerability last night." Nikhil froze. The security flaw in their new cryptocurrency platform was known to only 4 people in the entire organization. It had been keeping him awake for weeks. "Impossible," he said, leaning forward. "That system isn't publicly accessible." Zara opened her tablet and turned it toward him. "The authentication protocol has a backdoor. I wrote a patch." She swiped to a screen of elegant code. "It's not perfect, but it's a starting point." Nikhil scanned the algorithm, his irritation transforming into grudging interest. The solution was clever, unconventional even. Not something taught in typical computer science programs. "Where did you study?" he asked, unable to recall the details from her file. "Edinburgh and MIT, she replied. "But my best education came from a small collective of ethical hackers in Geneva." Nikhil raised an eyebrow. "Ethical hackers in Switzerland? That sounds like a cover story." Zara smiled, a genuine expression that momentarily transformed her ordinary features into something more striking. "The truth is often stranger than fiction, Mr. Malhotra." Something about her confidence unsettled him. Most new hires were desperate to impress, their nervousness palpable. Zara seemed entirely comfortable in her skin, as if her position at Visionary Tech was merely an interesting diversion rather than a coveted career opportunity. "You'll work with Priya's team," he said finally. "The cryptocurrency project needs fresh eyes. If your solutions work, you can stay. If not," he let the implication hang. "Fair enough," Zara replied, rising gracefully. "I appreciate clarity." Over the next 3 weeks, Nikhil found himself increasingly aware of Zara's presence in the company. Her name appeared on project reports always associated with elegant solutions to complex problems. In meetings, she spoke rarely but effectively, offering insights that cut through hours of circular discussion. What irked him most was her apparent indifference to office politics. While others scrambled for his attention and approval, Zara simply did her work and went home. No late nights trying to impress the boss. No eager emails at midnight. She maintained a mysterious boundary that nobody at Visionary Tech seemed able to cross. "She's different," Rohan commented one evening as they reviewed the quarterly projections. "The team says she disappeared last weekend, flew to London for personal reasons, and returned Monday morning as if it were perfectly normal to cross continents for a weekend trip." Nikhil pretended disinterest. "As long as her work is done, I don't care if she spends weekends on the moon." But his curiosity was piqued. That night, he found himself scrolling through her employment file, searching for clues. Her background check was surprisingly thin. Born to Indian parents in a small European country called Aldovia, educated at elite institutions, spotless record. Too spotless, perhaps. Everyone had secrets, especially people with real talent. The opportunity to investigate further came unexpectedly. A major system crash the following Friday required all hands on deck, and Nikhil found himself working alongside Zara in the emergency response team. At 3 a.m, with the crisis finally contained, he noticed her answering a text message, her face illuminated by the blue light of her phone. "Problem?" he asked, seeing her frown. Zara hesitated. Nothing work-related. Family complications? Family in Aldovia? He probed, watching her reaction. Something shifted in her expression. A momentary calculation like a chess player reassessing the board. Yes, they worry excessively. About their daughter working late nights in Mumbai? About appearances, she replied cryptically, then gathered her things. The system is stable now. I should go. As she walked away, Nikhil felt an unfamiliar sensation, the frustration of an unsolved puzzle. Zara Patel was either remarkably ordinary or hiding something extraordinary. Either way, he was determined to find out which. Codes and Crowns, the annual Digital Futures Gala, was Mumbai's most prestigious tech event, where innovation met investment and reputations were made or broken. For Nikhil, it was both a battlefield and a throne room, a place to display visionary tech's dominance while courting international investors. The Hong Kong delegation arrives at 8. Rohan reminded him as their car pulled up to the glittering Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, and the Crown Prince of Aldovia's representative is particularly interested in our neural interface project. Nikhil straightened his custom-tailored Sabyasachi Sherwani. Aldovia? That tiny European monarchy? What could they possibly offer us? Despite their size, they're pioneering in medical technology regulations. Their royal family has pushed for progressive tech policies for generations. Rohan explained, scrolling through his tablet. Having them as allies would smooth our expansion into European markets. The ballroom was transformed into a futuristic wonderland, with holographic displays showcasing cutting-edge innovations from across Asia. Nikhil moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his charisma shifting into high gear as he charmed potential partners and intimidated competitors. He was midway through explaining Visionary's 5-year expansion strategy to a group of Japanese investors when he saw her. Zara stood across the room, but she was almost unrecognizable. Gone was the practical bun and simple attire. Instead, her dark hair cascaded in elegant waves over one shoulder, and she wore a stunning midnight blue gown embroidered with subtle silver patterns that resembled circuit boards upon closer inspection. A delicate tiara nestled among her curls, catching the light with each movement. More striking than her appearance was how she carried herself, with the unmistakable poise of someone born to command attention. She was speaking with the American ambassador, who listened with unusual deference. "Excuse me," Nikhil murmured to the investors, suddenly distracted. He made his way across the room, weaving through clusters of tech elites until he was close enough to hear her conversation. "Your Royal Highness," the ambassador was saying, "your family's commitment to technological ethics is precisely what Silicon Valley needs to consider. Perhaps during your next official visit, I prefer to observe before making policy recommendations," Zara replied, her voice carrying the faintest trace of an accent Nikhil had never noticed before. "Though I appreciate the invitation, Royal Highness?" Nikhil felt as though the floor had shifted beneath him. A distinguished older gentleman in a military dress uniform approached, bowing slightly. "Princess Janvi, the Aldovian Minister of Innovation, wishes to speak with you about the quantum computing initiative." Zara, or Princess Janvi apparently, nodded graciously. "Of course, General Varma. I'll join him momentarily." She turned and found Nikhil staring at her, his expression caught between shock and something that might have been betrayal. For a moment, their eyes locked in silent communication, his demanding answers, hers offering a complex mixture of apology and defiance. "Mr. Malhotra," she said formally, inclining her head. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Clearly," he replied, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Princess Janvi of Aldovia? Is that who you've been all along?" A flash of resignation crossed her features. "Perhaps we could speak privately." Minutes later, they stood on a secluded balcony overlooking the Arabian Sea, the Mumbai nightscape creating a constellation of lights that mirrored the stars above. "My full title is Her Royal Highness Princess Janvi Amara Devi Rathore of Aldovia," she said without preamble. "My mother is Aldovian royalty. My father was an Indian diplomat. I've spent my life between worlds, belonging fully to neither." Nikhil's mind raced, reassessing every interaction they'd had. So working at Visionary Tech was what? Some royal whim? A way to slum it with the commoners? Janvi's eyes flashed with rare anger. Is that what you think? That I would treat people's livelihoods as a game? What else should I think? You lied about your identity. You've been living a double life. I've been living as myself, she countered. The person I am without the weight of a crown. Do you have any idea what it's like to be judged solely on a title rather than your abilities? To never know if your achievements are your own or merely granted out of deference? Her words struck an unexpected chord. Hadn't he fought his own battle against assumptions? The son of middle-class teachers from Pune, he'd clawed his way into IIT and then into the tech elite through relentless work and innovation. How many times had investors or partners dismissed him before realizing his capabilities? Why my company? He asked, his tone softening slightly. Janvi leaned against the balcony railing. Your reputation precedes you. Brilliant but ruthless. Demanding but fair. I wanted to work somewhere my ideas would be judged on merit alone. A small smile touched her lips. You never once treated me like I was special. The irony wasn't lost on him. So the princess came to be treated like everyone else, while everyone else fights to be treated like royalty. Something like that, she admitted. My family allowed me 6 months of normal work experience before I must return to full-time royal duties. 3 months remain. Before Nikhil could respond, General Varma appeared at the doorway. Your Highness, forgive the interruption. But the Prime Minister has arrived and wishes to pay his respects. Janvi straightened. The transformation from Zara to royal princess happening before Nikhil's eyes. A subtle shift in posture, an almost imperceptible lifting of her chin. Thank you, General. I'll be right there. Once they were alone again, she turned to Nikhil. Will you fire me now that you know? The question caught him off guard. Can I? I imagine royal diplomatic immunity complicates termination paperwork. A genuine laugh escaped her. I signed a legal contract as Zara Patel. That identity is real. It's my mother's maiden name. I've used it for years when I needed privacy. Nikhil studied her, seeing both versions simultaneously. The brilliant, reserved data analyst and the confident royal. The combination was unexpectedly compelling. Keep your job, he said finally, but no more secrets. I want to know who I'm working with. Fair enough, she replied, extending her hand as she had on their first meeting. Hello, I'm Janvi. Also Zara. I'm excellent with algorithms, terrible at palace protocol, and currently leading a double life that's growing increasingly complicated. Despite himself, Nikhil smiled as he shook her hand. Nikhil Malhotra, visionary tech CEO, occasional tyrant and apparently employing royalty at entry-level wages, which might be my most embarrassing business oversight to date. Her laughter was cut short by another palace aide appearing at the doorway. Your Highness, the delegation is waiting. Janvi sighed. Duty calls. We'll continue this conversation another time, as she walked away, transforming once more into the poised princess acknowledged by bowing dignitaries. Nikhil realized the puzzle of Zara Patel hadn't been solved. It had only grown more intriguing. The next morning, a royal motorcade pulled up to Visionary Tech's headquarters. Employees gathered at windows as Princess Janvi, dressed once again as Zara Patel in her simple professional attire, stepped out of a diplomatic vehicle and walked through the front doors as if it were any ordinary day. Nikhil watched from his office as she nodded politely to gawking co-workers, before sitting at her desk and opening her laptop. No airs, no special treatment requested, just a princess doing her job. For the first time in his career, Nikhil Malhotra had no idea what would happen next. Royal Algorithms morning. Light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Visionary Tech's executive conference room as Nikhil reviewed project timelines with his senior leadership team. The cryptocurrency platform launch was 3 weeks away, and tension hung in the air like an electrical charge. Security protocols are still showing vulnerabilities in stress tests, Vikram, the head of engineering, reported grimly. We either delay the launch or accept significant risk. Before Nikhil could respond, Zara, or Janvi as he now knew her, spoke up. May I? Without waiting for permission, she rose and connected her tablet to the room's projection system. Complex code filled the screens. I've been working on an alternative approach, she explained, navigating through the algorithm with practiced ease. Instead of patching the existing architecture, we need to reconceptualize how the system authenticates transactions. For 15 minutes, she outlined a solution so elegant that even Vikram, notorious for his skepticism, leaned forward with growing interest. Nikhil watched her with newfound fascination. This wasn't the reserved data analyst he'd first met, nor was it the formal princess from the gala. This was someone entirely comfortable in her expertise, commanding the room not through title but through sheer brilliance. Implementation would take approximately 72 hours, she concluded. I can lead the team if you approve. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Nikhil. 2 weeks ago, he would have questioned, challenged, perhaps even dismissed such a radical proposal from a relatively new employee. Now he found himself nodding. Make it happen, he said simply. Vikram, give her whatever resources she needs. As the meeting dispersed, Nikhil gestured for Janvi to remain. When they were alone, he asked the question that had been bothering him since the gala. How does someone who will someday help rule a country find time to become an expert in cryptographic security? A small smile played at her lips. The same way a CEO finds time to learn classical music. I saw the piano in your apartment on that virtual house tour you did for Tech Visionaries magazine. That's different, he protested. Playing raga on the piano helps me think. It's a hobby. And if coding were merely my hobby, she countered. Aldovia may be small, but our digital infrastructure is vital to our economy. My great-grandfather recognized this decades ago. Technology isn't separate from governance, it's central to it. Nikhil leaned against the conference table. So your family encouraged this expertise? Not exactly, she admitted. They expected me to understand technology as a ruler should understand economics or diplomacy, at a high level. But I fell in love with the elegant logic of code, the perfect marriage of creativity and precision. Her expression turned distant. In the palace, everything is governed by tradition and protocol. In programming, I found freedom within structure. Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition of kinship despite their vastly different backgrounds. Both understood the allure of creating order from chaos, of building systems that transformed the world. Walk with me, Nikhil said impulsively. There's something I want to show you. 20 minutes later, they stood in a small cluttered lab 3 floors, below the main offices, Nikhil's personal workshop where he still occasionally built prototypes when leadership responsibilities allowed. Most of my executives don't even know. This place exists, he confessed, activating a holographic display that filled the center of the room with swirling blue light. This is what I've been working on for the past 2 years. Janvi circled the hologram, immediately recognizing its significance. Neural interface technology. But this architecture is unlike anything I've seen published. Because it isn't published, Nikhil replied. Traditional neural interfaces focus on interpreting brain signals. This goes further. It's a true bidirectional communication protocol. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You're creating the framework for direct human-AI collaboration. More than that, he said quietly. I believe it could eventually allow human minds to communicate directly with each other, sharing not just words or images but concepts, emotions, entire frameworks of thought. Janvi reached toward the hologram, her fingers passing through the light. It would transform humanity, for better or worse. That's why I haven't shared it widely. The technology isn't ready and neither is the world. He met her gaze directly. What would Princess Janvi of Aldovia think of such technology? Would your royal council ban it? Restrict it? Exploit it? She considered the question with genuine seriousness. I can't speak for my entire government, but I believe any technology powerful enough to transform consciousness must be developed with extraordinary care and ethical guardrails. She turned to face him fully, which is why I'm glad someone like you is creating it, rather than those who would see only its profitable or military applications. Nikhil hadn't realized how much her answer mattered to him until he felt the tension release from his shoulders. For years he'd carried this project alone, trusting no one with his true vision. Help me with it, he said, surprising himself. Not as an employee, but as a collaborator. Your perspective, bridging technology and governance, is exactly what this project needs. Over the following weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Days were devoted to company business, with Janvi successfully implementing her security solution and earning the respect of even the most skeptical engineers. Evenings were spent in the private lab, refining neural interface protocols and debating the ethical frameworks that would guide its development. Their working relationship evolved into something neither had experienced before, a partnership of equals despite their different positions. Nikhil found himself sharing thoughts he'd never vocalized to anyone, while Janvi revealed the complexities of balancing royal duty with personal passion. My coronation as crown princess is scheduled for my 30th birthday, she explained one night as they worked side by side. After that, my life belongs primarily to Aldovia. These months at Visionary might be my last chance to be simply Zara. The thought of her leaving created an unexpected hollow feeling in Nikhil's chest. You could continue remotely. Royal advisory role, she smiled sadly. A princess can't divide her loyalties. My family has made that abundantly clear. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from General Varma. Janvi's face grew serious as she listened, occasionally responding in the flowing language of Aldovia. What's happened? Nikhil asked when she disconnected. My grandmother, the queen, has fallen ill, she said, already gathering her things. Nothing critical, but the council wants me back immediately for consultations on state matters while my mother attends to her. Of course, Nikhil replied, surprised by his disappointment. Take whatever time you need. She paused at the door. I'll return as soon as possible. We're close to a breakthrough on the sensory feedback loop. After she left, Nikhil remained in the lab, staring at the holographic display that now somehow felt incomplete without her insights. He realized with uncomfortable clarity that somewhere between discovery and collaboration, he'd begun to care for Janvi as more than a brilliant mind or a royal asset. 3 days passed with only brief text updates from Aldovia. On the 4th morning, Nikhil arrived at his office to find an elegant envelope on his desk, bearing the royal seal of the House of Rathor. Inside was a formal invitation to Aldovia's annual Technology and Humanitarian Innovation Summit. Personally signed by Princess Janvi Rohan appeared in the doorway, looking concerned. Sir, you might want to see this. He handed Nikhil his tablet open to a financial news site. The headline made Nikhil's blood run cold. Royal romance? Tech billionaire Nikhil Malhotra and Princess Janvi of Aldovia spotted collaborating closely at Mumbai tech giant. Below was a grainy security camera image of them entering his private lab, followed by speculation about Visionary Tech's rumored neural interface technology and the princess's unexplained employment at the company. As Nikhil scrolled through the article, his phone chimed with a message from Janvi. Have you seen the news? My royal council is demanding explanations. Call me. The carefully constructed boundary between Princess Janvi's two worlds had just spectacularly collapsed, and Nikhil realized that whatever had been growing between them would now face its greatest test, the unforgiving scrutiny of both royal protocol and public speculation. Protocol breached. Royal Palace of Aldovia stood atop a forested hill, its white marble spires reaching toward the alpine sky like elegant fingers. From the moment Nikhil's private jet touched down at the small kingdom's international airport, he'd been enveloped in diplomatic protocol, met by royal aides, escorted through a private customs checkpoint, and driven in a motorcade of black sedans with miniature Aldovian flags fluttering on their hoods. Now, seated in an ornate reception room with gilded mirrors and centuries-old tapestries, Nikhil felt distinctly out of place despite his custom suit and the confidence that usually accompanied him everywhere. Technology moguls weren't meant for palaces. They belonged in sleek modernist buildings with touchscreen walls and ergonomic furniture. Her Royal Highness will see you now, announced a stern-faced palace official, gesturing toward a set of double doors. The woman who greeted him was simultaneously familiar and foreign. Janvi wore the formal attire of Aldovian royalty, a structured blue dress with a subtle crown emblem embroidered at the collar, her hair arranged in an elegant updo adorned with a slim diamond tiara. Gone were the casual movements of Zara Patel. Here every gesture was measured, every expression carefully controlled. Mr. Malhotra, she said formally, extending her hand. Thank you for accepting our invitation to the Innovation Summit. Only her eyes, meeting his with an intensity that contradicted her practiced tone, revealed the Janvi he had come to know in Mumbai. The honor is mine, Your Royal Highness, he replied, matching her formality while a palace photographer captured their meeting. Once the official greeting concluded and the staff departed, leaving them momentarily alone, Janvi's royal facade softened. I'm sorry about all this, she said quickly, her voice low. The media speculation has created a diplomatic situation. My mother and the Royal Council insisted on formalizing your visit as a state matter, rather than a personal one. Nikhil nodded. And our project? We'll discuss it at the summit. Until then, she glanced toward the door where a palace aide waited discreetly. I'm afraid we must maintain proper protocol. Protocol, as Nikhil quickly discovered, meant limited access to Janvi. The next day's technology summit positioned him as a keynote speaker rather than as her collaborator. He presented Visionary Tech's public innovations to an audience of European dignitaries and tech leaders, carefully avoiding any mention of the neural interface project, while Janvi watched from the royal box, her expression diplomatically neutral. That evening, at the formal gala following the summit, Nikhil found himself surrounded by curious nobility and business leaders, all probing for details about his relationship with their princess. Her Highness has always had unconventional interests, remarked an elderly duchess, studying Nikhil over her champagne glass, though working as a common employee seems extreme even for Janvi. There was nothing common about her contributions, Nikhil replied coolly. Princess Janvi's innovations will benefit millions. Indeed, came a crisp voice from behind them. Queen Amara, Janvi's mother, stood regally before him. Though in her 60s, she carried herself with the straight-backed posture of someone who had balanced a crown since childhood. Perhaps you might elaborate on these innovations during a private audience. Mr. Malhotra. Minutes later, Nikhil found himself in a small but opulent study, face-to-face with the Queen of Aldovia. Let us speak plainly, she said, dispensing with pleasantries. My daughter's dalliance with your company has created complications. The press speculates about everything from industrial espionage to romantic entanglements. Neither serves Aldovia's interests. Nikhil maintained his composure. With respect, Your Majesty, Princess Janvi's work at Visionary Tech was substantive and beneficial to both parties. There was no dalliance involved. Queen Amara's eyes narrowed slightly, and yet she shared details of a confidential neural interface project with you, a project not disclosed to Aldovia's Technology Ministry despite our nation's renowned expertise in this field. The statement confirmed Nikhil's suspicion that the palace had been monitoring their communications. That was a private collaboration between colleagues, he said carefully. My daughter is not merely a colleague, Mr. Malhotra. She is the Crown Princess of Aldovia, next in line to the throne. Her primary obligation is to this country and its people. The Queen moved to a window overlooking the palace gardens. Janvi has always been independent-minded. I've allowed her these explorations because I believe experiencing the world makes for better rulers. But that phase must conclude. She turned back to him, her expression softening slightly. I was young once, too, Mr. Malhotra. I understand the allure of brilliant minds finding connection. But Janvi's position demands sacrifices. Surely you, as a CEO, understand that leadership requires difficult choices. Before Nikhil could respond, the door opened and Janvi entered, her expression tightly controlled but her eyes flashing with anger. Mother, she said, her tone respectful but firm, I believe diplomatic protocol grants our international guests some respite before midnight interrogations. Queen Amara smiled thinly. We were merely discussing the boundaries between private enterprise and state interests. A topic I'm sure both of you have considered. Extensively, Janvi replied, and one better addressed after our guests have rested. The Minister of Technology is looking for you regarding the French delegation. After the Queen departed, Janvi closed the door and leaned against it, momentarily dropping the royal mask to reveal exhaustion underneath. I apologize for my mother, she said. She's protective of both me and Aldovia's technological position. She's not entirely wrong, Nikhil admitted. We've been operating in a gray area between personal collaboration and formal partnership. Janvi moved to stand before him. I need you to understand something. In 3 months, I'll undergo my formal investiture as Crown Princess, taking on full diplomatic duties. My grandmother's health is failing faster than the public knows. My mother will likely become queen within the year, and I'll be expected to step fully into my role as heir. The reality of her position struck Nikhil anew. This wasn't merely about a talented programmer returning to family obligations. It was about a future head of state assuming the mantle of leadership. What about our project? He asked, though he now realized that wasn't the question uppermost in his mind. That's why I arranged your invitation here, she said, lowering her voice despite the privacy of the room. I've prepared a proposal for an official research partnership between Visionary Tech and the Royal Aldovian Institute of Neuroscience. Structured correctly, it would allow our collaboration to continue legally and transparently. Hope surged briefly in Nikhil's chest before reality tempered it. And us? The person behind the princess and the man behind the CEO? Janvi's expression softened into sadness. That's the question I've been avoiding. Royal partnerships are strategic alliances, not personal choices. My marriage will eventually be a matter of diplomatic consideration. I see, Nikhil said, surprised by the hollowness her words created. When had this brilliant, complicated woman become so important to him? Then we focus on the work. She reached for his hand, a breach of the royal protocol she'd been scrupulously following since his arrival. The work matters, she said softly. What we're creating could change human connection forever. But don't ask me to pretend that's all that's grown between us. Before either could say more, a sharp knock at the door forced them apart. General Varma entered, his expression grave. Your Highness, forgive the interruption. There's been a situation. He glanced at Nikhil. A data breach at Visionary Tech. Mr. Malhotra's presence is requested for an emergency video conference. In the palace's secure communications center, they watched with growing horror as Rohan explained the situation. An advanced cyber attack had targeted Visionary's servers, specifically seeking information on the neural interface project. While the main security held, fragments of their research had been compromised, enough to reveal the project's existence and potential. The attack signature matches state-sponsored groups, Rohan reported grimly. And there's more. Financial news outlets have received anonymous tips about a secret technological alliance between Visionary Tech and the Aldovian crown. They're running with speculation about everything from military applications to mind control. When the call ended, Janvi turned to Nikhil, her face pale but resolute. This was deliberate, timed with your presence here to maximize the diplomatic fallout. The question is who benefits from exposing the project and damaging both Visionary and Aldovia's reputation. Nikhil replied. General Varma cleared his throat. Your Highness, the Royal Council has convened an emergency session. Your presence is required immediately. Janvi straightened, once again transforming before Nikhil's eyes into the princess her nation needed. I'll handle the council. Nikhil, do whatever necessary to secure the remaining research. As she turned to leave, she added quietly, remember, no matter what you hear or read in the coming days, trust that I'm doing what's necessary for all our futures. By morning, international headlines blared sensational stories about secret technology partnerships, royal deception and corporate espionage. Financial analysts predicted doom for Visionary Tech's stock, while political commentators questioned the judgment of Aldovia's future ruler. Nikhil stood at the window of his palace guest suite, watching a growing crowd of reporters gathering at the gates below, when Queen Amara's chief of staff arrived with a formal envelope. Her Majesty requests your departure from Aldovia by noon, the man stated coldly. A royal statement will be issued disavowing any inappropriate relationship between the crown and your company. Inside the envelope was a brief handwritten note in Janvi's elegant script. Trust me. Some walls must fall before we can rebuild. Meet me where algorithms and duty first collided. As his private jet lifted off from Aldovian soil, Nikhil watched the White Palace recede into the distance, uncertain if he would ever see Janvi again, or if the princess had finally and permanently overshadowed the woman he had come to love. Rewriting the code 3 weeks later, Nikhil stood at the glass wall of his Mumbai penthouse, watching monsoon rain transform the city into a glittering tapestry of lights reflected in water. Behind him, financial news played silently on a wall-mounted screen, charts displaying Visionary Tech's gradually recovering stock price after the initial plunge following the Aldovian scandal. The official story, carefully crafted by both Aldovian Royal Communications and Visionary's PR team, had minimized damage. Princess Janvi had undertaken an educational residency at the company, resulting in a limited research collaboration that had been targeted by corporate competitors. The princess had returned to her royal duties, while Visionary Tech continued its innovative work independently. Only Nikhil knew the deeper truth, that somewhere in the secure servers of both Visionary Tech and the Royal Aldovian Institute, Fragments of their neural interface project remained, waiting to be reunited. "Meet me where algorithms and duty first collided," Janvi's note had said. The Digital Futures Gala, where he had first discovered her royal identity, was tomorrow night, back at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. Would she risk appearing there after everything that had happened? Or was he clinging to false hope? His phone chimed with Rohan's daily update. European regulatory approval proceeding smoothly. Aldovian delegation still confirmed to attend tomorrow's gala despite rumors of diplomatic tension. Nikhil closed his eyes, allowing himself to remember Janvi as he had last seen her, torn between royal obligation and personal desire, yet ultimately choosing duty as she had been raised to do. Perhaps that was the end of their story. Two people from different worlds who briefly shared a vision before returning to their separate paths. The following evening, the gala shimmered with the same opulence as before, though Nikhil moved through it with none of his former swagger. He delivered his keynote address mechanically, speaking of technology's power to connect humanity, while feeling the hollowness of those connections in his own life. As the evening progressed with no sign of an Aldovian delegation, Nikhil found himself on the same balcony where he and Janvi had first spoken honestly with each other. The rain had cleared, leaving Mumbai's skyline crisp against the night sky. "Your speech lacked your usual confidence," came a familiar voice from behind him. The great Nikhil Malhotra actually seemed humble. Nikhil turned to find not Princess Janvi in royal finery, but Zara Patel in a simple black evening dress, her hair loose around her shoulders and not a tiara in sight. "Humility comes naturally after a public scandal and stock devaluation," he replied, his heart racing despite his measured tone. "What are you doing here? And how did you enter unnoticed?" Zara smiled. "It seems security guards don't recognize princesses without their crowns, particularly when they arrive through the service entrance with credential badges listing them as Dr. Z. Patel, Neural Systems Consultant." She joined him at the balcony railing, close enough that their arms nearly touched. "I have exactly 43 minutes before my security detail realizes I've slipped away from my hotel suite. You risked another international incident to speak with me for 43 minutes? "I risked it to give you this," she said, pressing a small data drive into his palm. "And to explain what happened in Aldovia." She glanced around before continuing in a lower voice. "The data breach wasn't random. Our intelligence services traced it to a coalition of tech competitors and conservative elements within Aldovia's own government people, who feared both Visionary's influence and my unconventional approach to royal duties." Nikhil examined the drive. "And this?" "The complete neural interface architecture with my latest refinements, plus something more important, a legal framework for a new type of international research body, independent from both corporate and national interests." Her eyes shone with the same passion he'd first seen when she explained complex algorithms. "I've spent these weeks convincing my mother and the council that the technology we're developing is too significant to be controlled by any single entity, even Aldovia." Understanding dawned. "You're creating a third path," she nodded. "The Royal Autonomy Act of Aldovia, just signed yesterday. For the first time in our history, it allows the Crown Princess to establish an independent research foundation that operates beyond political or commercial control, answerable only to an international ethics committee. Your mother approved this?" "Eventually," Janvi said with a small smile, "after I convinced her that it offered Aldovia greater influence than trying to control the technology directly." The Queen is a pragmatist above all. Nikhil's mind raced with implications. This foundation would need leadership, technical expertise, and moral vision, she added. Someone who understands both the transformative potential and the ethical responsibilities of neural interface technology. Her gaze met his directly. Someone who sees people for their capabilities rather than their titles. "You're offering me a position," he said carefully. "I'm offering you a partnership," Janvi corrected. Visionary tech would retain commercial applications for non-essential implementations, while the foundation guides the core technology's development. "You'd need to divide your time between Mumbai and Aldovia." Nikhil studied her expression, searching for the answer to his unspoken question. "And the princess and the CEO? What becomes of them?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Janvi's confident features. That depends on whether the CEO is willing to enter a world of royal protocol and diplomatic complexity. My duties to Eldovia remain my first priority. I can't offer a normal relationship. When have either of us been interested in normal? Nikhil asked, cautiously reaching for her hand. Besides, I've heard that royal consorts throughout history have found meaningful work beyond standing beside the throne. Technology advisor to the crown has a nice ring to it. Janvi's fingers intertwined with his. The council would insist on a proper courtship. Public appearances. Scrutiny of your business practices. Endless protocol lessons. Sounds marginally better than quarterly investor calls. His attempt at lightness faded as he added more seriously, I built Visionary from nothing because I believed technology could transform human connection. Now I realize that connection itself, finding someone who sees the world as you do, that's the rarer achievement. Around them, the sounds of the gala continued, but on their secluded balcony, a different future was taking shape. One neither had imagined when the data analyst first walked into the CEO's office. We should return before they send search parties for the princess, Janvi said softly. One moment. Nikhil replied, still holding her hand. Before we go back to titles and duties and protocol, tell me something only Zara would say. Not the princess. She considered for a moment, then leaned closer. Your security encryption still has a backdoor vulnerability. I've been meaning to fix it for weeks. Nikhil laughed, the tension of the past month finally breaking. Only you would conduct a security audit during a royal crisis. Speaking of which, she said, glancing at her watch, we have approximately 18 minutes before diplomatic chaos ensues. As they moved toward the door, Nikhil stopped her with a gentle touch. Whatever comes next, royal duties, technological breakthroughs, global transformation, I want you to know that I see you, not the princess or the programmer, just you. Janvi's smile held the quiet confidence he'd first noticed months ago. That's why we'll succeed. Because beneath the algorithms and crowns, we recognize something in each other that most people never find. When they re-entered the gala, they did so separately, the tech mogul and the princess maintaining their public narrative of professional distance. But those watching closely might have noticed something different in how Princess Janvi addressed the visionary tech delegation during official photographs, or how Nikhil Malhotra's customary arrogance had transformed into something more measured and thoughtful. 6 months later, the Royal Aldovian Institute for Neural Connectivity opened its doors in a stunning modern facility nestled against the alpine landscape. International headlines noted the unprecedented partnership between the royal family and visionary tech, with the crown princess and the Indian tech innovator jointly cutting the ceremonial ribbon. What the headlines didn't capture was the moment afterward, when Nikhil, now carrying the honorary, Aldovian title of Royal Technology Advisor, quietly adjusted the princess's ceremonial sash before their next appearance. Protocol, he murmured with a smile. You're learning, she replied, her eyes conveying everything that royal decorum prevented her from expressing publicly. The neural interface project progressed under their joint guidance, evolving beyond its original vision into something that promised to bridge gaps not just between humans and technology, but between people divided by language, culture, and experience. Each breakthrough brought humanity closer to a world where understanding transcended traditional boundaries, much like the unlikely partnership that had made it possible. In the palace gardens one evening, as Janvi explained the latest diplomatic complexity surrounding their research, Nikhil interrupted her with an observation that had been forming since their first meeting. You know, most people see only what they expect to see, he said. I saw an ordinary data analyst because I couldn't imagine a princess would care about algorithmic efficiency. Others see only your title, missing the brilliance behind it. Janvi considered this, the weight of her future responsibilities momentarily visible in her expression. And what do you see now? Someone who defies every category, he answered. A future queen who codes security patches at midnight. A brilliant mind who values connection above power. A woman who refused to choose between duty and passion, instead creating a path that honors both. She smiled, the private smile that belonged not to the princess or even to Zara, but to the person who existed beyond all labels. We're rewriting more than code, aren't we? We're rewriting expectations, Nikhil agreed. And perhaps that's the most revolutionary algorithm of all. Above them, stars emerged in the Aldovian night sky, while in Mumbai, Visionary Tech's headquarters glowed with activity despite the late hour. Two worlds, once separate, now connected through an unexpected partnership that had transformed both, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary connections arise where we least expect to find them.